Welcome back. So, let's take a look at the principles of object-oriented programming. So, we have this class date, right? It's sitting here, it just has variables, and all these variables are placed under public. So, now let's go ahead and add a function to a class. To this class. The function will set attributes to certain values. Functions in classes are basically called methods. That's about it. Functions in classes are called methods. So if I say a method, I'm just referring to a function within a class, or yeah, there's really nothing else to say on that matter. Anyway, this function will set the attributes to certain values. So this function is a setter. It sets the values of attributes to any specified values we want. Anyway, this one actually needs to be in public, and we can type in void set date, and it's going to be like int d for day, int m for month, and oops, it's going to be int y for year. And let's go ahead and create the function here. So the classes, they have a special, I'm about to use the attribute, I'm going to use this. Class has a special attribute called this. So like this, there we go, you can see it on the screen now, which refers to the current instance of the class. So the syntax, this, and then some attribute, basically is an access to the attribute of the object to which this points. I know it's a little bit of a weird concept to comprehend at the moment, but you'll see how it works. So this is a pointer. So this, I'm referring to what you see on the screen, what I'm highlighting now. So this is a pointer. For now, let's just learn that whatever we have a pointer to, a structure or a class, we access its attributes with this minus sign greater than, and then the attribute. We will process the pointers at a later point in time, and I will explain them in great detail, but for the time being, just take it for what it is on the screen. So, day shall be equal to d, and this month shall be equal to m, and this shall be equal to year. Okay. So we will initialize, we will set these attributes in this fashion. So this is going to basically say that whatever parameters are passed here, these variables from here will be initialized too. Okay, so now let's go back to our main function and let's have a look around there. We can use dt dot set date. It's going to be like 12.5.1993. Okay. If anybody's wondering why this date, I honestly don't remember now. Yeah. I might go online and search to see if something happened, but I completely forgot. Anyway, setting the date. So it's definitely a lot easier to set the date in this fashion as opposed to doing this. dt dot day and then equal to 12th, and then again dt dot month and equal to, I don't know, equal to 9th, and you would have to have three lines of code for every initialization, for every instance of the object, for every initialization. I mean, if you had date dt01 and if you had date dt02, you would need to do thrice the initialization for both of them. It's a lot easier to simply use the method and be successful in terms of initialization, lower the amount of code that you actually need to write, because it can get rather annoying. Now let's go ahead and expand this class and write methods for printing out the date as well as reading certain attributes. So we're not going to delete much, but we're going to add a good amount. And we're going to add a good amount within the class date. You'll see this class should expand significantly. Okay, thus far we will leave this in the public, and we will continue to write in public. So now we will create a method for printing out the date in any given format that we want, and this method will not accept anything. This will just take the values of the variables within a class, and it will print them out. So void print, and this is gonna be like a const. The const here means that this method will not change the state of the class, and it doesn't change it. We are just printing out to the screen. The setDate method changes the state, it changes the variables, that is, and thus cannot be a const. Okay, so now that that's been said, let's go ahead and do this. std cout and this month. Okay, so it's gonna be like, we'll have a slash that we can, just for the sake of simplicity, I'm gonna go ahead and do this. Okay, so this is gonna be like a day. And we're gonna have another slash there. So once again, this, it's gonna be here. And actually, no, not that. And L. And the line terminator. So this method will be used for printing out the values of day, month, and year. If you take a look down below, this is a bit strange way of writing it with the pointer. So when you write it down below, when you actually call for the attributes and call the methods, etc., you're calling them with I don't know, but we can, this is just one date dt, but if we had, for example, date dt1, and if we type this in, so dt1 dot set date, and we can set like 10 of 2010. My throat is beginning to kill me slowly, but it's okay. If we initialize the variables twice, and if we type in cout, well, actually, I don't need to do it this way. I can just type it. Now that I've created the method, I can just type in dt dot, hey, I have a print. And I can do this. And then again, dt1 dot, and I have a print again. So let's go ahead and run this and see what happens. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted to click on. Okay, so there seems to be an issue somewhere. Am I seriously missing a semicolon somewhere? Okay, that should be fine. That should be fine. Function int main. Ah, okay, right. Oh, come on, don't do this to me. Too many decimal points in a number. It's a colon, genius. It's a colon. It's a comma, not a dot. Okay, there we go. So it says 5121993, and down below it says 1010 2010. So you see, even though here this method print, We have not, I mean, we're not that when we call it down below, the computer needs to know whether to print these values or these values. And every time you call the method with, I don't know, if it's dt, it's going to print out the values for dt. If it's dt1, it's going to print out the values for dt1, and so on and so forth. For each instance, they should be different, I don't know, depending on the way you initialize them. Just wanted to make a small demo there of this method and of when you create like two instances. Anyway, we can basically create a getter function as well. And that should help us move the variables into the private section. Or, yeah, basically into private. We don't need protected. Not yet, anyway. So this will be a method for getting days. We will have one method for getting days, one method to get the months, and one method to get the years. You should be able to write these on your own by now. So get. This is just a naming convention. The names are completely arbitrary. You can change them. It doesn't need to be get date. It can be like, I don't know, you can name it toilet paper if you want. It really doesn't matter. But the standard convention for getters is that their names begin with get and then the name of the actual variable. It doesn't have anything to do with the compiler. It's going to compile regardless of the name as long as it's within the naming standards, but it's the convention. Okay, so return this day. Okay, so let me just check something in my notes. Anyway, the attribute this. Can you now relate better why is it there for? This is a special attribute, so it is referring to the current instance of the class. So if you use dt and dt1, those are two different ones. But by using this here, when getDay is called, it is referring to the current one. Okay, hopefully I've made some headway there, but don't worry, we will get into pointers soon enough. And then we're gonna have fun depending on the way you look at it. So let's go ahead and type in get month const here, and we're gonna actually let's write these in a bit of a different way. I mean, I'm not gonna change anything in terms of code, just in terms of aesthetics, I guess. Let's write them like this. I mean, they're very short anyway, no need to take up unnecessary space. Return this, and it's gonna be month. Down below we shall have int get year, return this, and it's going to be year. Okay, so right, forgetting the semicolons here. Excellent, there they go. So we have three getters. The only thing that they do is just take the variables here and return them. That's it. They don't change anything. They just get the values and then they return them. They get the values from the variables and then they return them. That is the entirety of their purpose. They do not do anything else. Okay, so now we have now we have a solid class. Now you have pretty much all the elements there listed. You have the variables, you have methods, and you have getters, and you have setters, etc. So let's go ahead and play around in the main a little bit. We can safely go ahead and delete this, and we shall say int mdy. Okay, so month, date, year, month, day, year. I'm choosing to use this format of the date. You can switch them around if you find it more convenient. We can type in std::. Okay, we're just gonna prompt the user to enter, you guessed it, date. Okay, so, and let me just provide a way for a user to actually input it. It's gonna be like month, and it's gonna be day, and we're gonna need a year as well. And let's go ahead and terminate it. So that's how the user will input it, by separating it with spaces. And now we need to create a date object. So date dt, and down below we shall state that dt dot set date shall be used to initialize with the variables that the user actually entered. So it's in a bit of a different format here, so we'll need to switch them around. So it's going to be day, month, and a year. And it's going to be like std cout, and we shall do this under date, and then we shall use the method. So dt dot print, so we don't have to actually create a printout on our, so we don't have to actually create a formatted printout each time we need to print it out. And we can also do this. So let me just go ahead and show you. You can also take only a portion of the date. Let's see, this is going to be month. That's it. We're just going to leave it at that and add here dt dot get month. So this is going to return us a month. So we can see that there's obviously no need to directly use the attributes. I mean, you don't need to actually type in dt dot month. Rather, instead you type in dt dot get month. Same is for setting attributes. We have dt dot set date method. The only problem is that we have to set all the attributes at once and not separately. That is why we will implement setters for attribute setting. So these are all gets. Now we need to configure now we need to write the setters for each individual attribute, so we can set them individually. So we don't need to actually set them all at once with the current general setter that we have, which is the function set date. So you see it sets all three of the hate this part with the code blocks when you move this around. Anyway, you see this is a general setter. It sets all three of them and it configures the date to the fullest of extents. But just like we have getters for each individual attribute, so too shall we have the setters for each individual attribute. Once we do that, once that is done, once we have the setters and getters for all the attributes, there is no need for our attributes to be seen. So we will hide them. The hiding is the hiding, so to say, take this with a grain of salt, is one of the fundamental principles of object-oriented programming. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut the video here, and don't delete anything. We will come back in part 2 simply because I'm running out of time and the video's duration is limited to 20 minutes. Anyway, bid you farewell and let's see each other in a moment.